Hello and welcome everybody. It's DH Thorne coming at you live tonight on this spooky Thursday. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff. Probably talk about a little bit of politics. Probably talk about a little off-color spirituality perhaps. Certainly not right-hand stuff. But let's begin by saying hello to all of our guests and all of our commenters, shit talkers, and friends. Let's see who we got. We have Illuminostic. What's up, brother? Good to see you. Hope everything's doing well. He says, I don't mind the shadows. I don't mind the shadows, but mind the shadows. Make sure you pay attention to them. Shift Happen says, hey, hey, hey. Max Avery says, yo, what's up, Max? We got to get you back on if you want. Sooner or later. I don't know how open you would be to that. I know you definitely got things going on, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But if you ever want to, let me know. Dan Best says hello. Skeleton Power says hello and hail. And he gives me the good old fist bump or the horns, depending upon how you look at it. Atropa says hey, hey. Andrew Phillips says hey, hey to everybody. And Alexander C says sup. So we're just getting started right now. We only got about 17 people on here. You know what'd be really cool? I was talking to my wife tonight. I mean, I talk to her every night. But you know what would be kind of fun? Maybe I could get Fleshy to come back for like a guest performance for this. It's been a little while, but you know what'd be really fun? To get a collection of videos that won't get me any kind of content strike to review like ghost videos. Like my wife and I watch a channel, what's it called? We watch it every night at dinner time. I think it's like Big Bub or something like that. I don't know. She'll probably tell me in a second when she hears this. Bizarre Bub. We watch that just about every night with dinner, and there's like so many ones, and like, you know, a lot of them are just corny or fake, but some of them are actually really, really good, and they're a lot of fun. So it might be fun to like do like sort of like, you know, a live reaction to some of these. I think that'd be pretty cool. So if we can make that happen, I might try to do it, but I don't know. That's like a whole other operation, because I'd have to get videos that are watchable for one thing, that won't get me content struck, and for another, it's a lot of work to go through them and find them. I'd, you know, probably have to use Reddit, which I don't want to use. It's no thank you. I don't want to support predators, thank you very much. But what's up, Jockster? How you doing? What's up, Odo? Good to see you guys too. Krasinski says that would be cool. Thank you. I agree, that would be cool. So we're just getting started. Give us a like and a thumbs up, whatever you got to give us. And if you don't mind, share this with your friends, anybody you think would be interested. Let's get the viewers up. Usually we get a little bit higher as we go along. So if that happens, that happens. If not, that's fine too. So, yeah. What's everybody up to? Damian Draco, Kelly Meadows. There we go. People are filtering in. What's everybody been up to? I haven't seen Wyatt. Wyatt's not here. Usually he's here by now. So hopefully he's all right. He'll probably be like, he mentioned me. So who's watching? You know, politics suck, right? But we've gone far beyond politics right now. We're no longer in politics territory. This is not about politics. Politics is bullshit. You know, politics is, you know, tribal stuff, and I'm not into tribal stuff at all. You know, people get all like, oh, it's the Democrats, oh, it's the Republicans, oh, it's this and that. And that's one of the ways they keep you down, guys, is making it about party. You know, sometimes you gotta align with people, you gotta come together as a group and work together. I get that, but parties are dumb, you know, in terms of like always siding with a party. But it is really important, the things that are going on in America when it comes to elections and things like that. Arizona is floundering around with another election, and of course the election in question is for Kari Lake for Arizona, for governor. And if I lived in Arizona, that's what I'd be voting for. I'd be voting for her. And of course there's all kinds of floundering about, you know, counting of ballots and everything else. I'm not going to make this stream about that, but I want to bring you guys attention to, you know, the ongoing issues with this stuff. It's way beyond political, and one of the reasons I bring it up is because there is sort of a change of flow going on, and it's not just with that. It's a change of flow, like in the attitudes of people again. I think people are finally starting to get back to normal a little bit, surprisingly, interestingly enough, in their own headspace. Maybe it's just me. You Yeah, I agree, Jocksters. Politics tends to be like sports, support your team. But I think we're transcending that right now. In a normal, environment, a normal time frame, that's completely correct. I think that would be completely correct. I don't think you're wrong at all. In fact, I'd be the first one to say it. I think I was in this conversation. But we are reaching a point where it is now an existential issue. It's not immediate, like, politics, government issues in society go slowly. They burn slowly. And there's a saying, I forget who said it, but, there are decades where weeks will happen, and then there's weeks where decades will happen. And we're in a, weeks where decades happen kind of phase. It's still pretty slow, but it's still a lot. And it's very trying because we all know what's going on. Most people are finally realizing what's happening. The people who aren't realizing it, I don't know when they're going to figure it out. I don't know what else it's going to take. But the battle's been joined. People are finally doing something about it. And like I said, I don't want to dwell on this tonight because it's not really on my mind that badly. But I want to draw attention to it a little bit so that people remember not to just give up on it and not to just ignore it. Make sure that, you realize that this is not politics as usual. This is a major transition that people around the world are going through. There's a lot that is going to change in the next couple of years. I predict, for the most part, it's going to be very chaotic and there's going to be a lot of bad events, but the changes that result will probably be good ones. I predict a lot of, I think something very chaotic is doomed to happen in the near future. I don't know what, I don't know when. Maybe it's just big war. Maybe it's just, they release another thing, which, I can't say too openly on YouTube on enemy territory. But something is probably coming, and it's going to happen pretty soon. I don't know when. You can feel it in the air. You can feel that they want to do things. You can feel that they're going to, push things that they shouldn't. They're trying to railroad people right now in, kangaroo courts all over the place. And these are the actions of desperation. These aren't the acts of people that are in control, because if they were in control, they wouldn't need to do it the way they're doing it. They would just, people wouldn't be talking about it. They would have it where they want it. They don't want people talking about it much. They're resorting to methods that are usually only used when a society or system is really, really not confident, to be honest with you. So we need to remember, keep our eyes on the ball. Those of you who are active in those things, don't back down. Don't retreat into your hole and think, oh, it's going to get better. This is a big deal time, unfortunately. And until we can sort of get through that, we're all going to just have to deal with it. Okay. And that means me and you and everybody else. And it really sucks because it's divided a lot of us in ways that are, depressing, to say the least. When I got into this stuff and making videos, my first videos were all political. When I first emerged into YouTube land, it was literally all political stuff. That's all I did. Political and some video game reviews and shit like that. Nobody really watched me. And then once I got back into doing this stuff and making it about weird content and spirituality and demons and angels and gods and all this stuff, once I did that, I didn't want to deal with those things anymore openly. I didn't want to make my social media about politics anymore. And I felt a great relief letting that go. And it was nice to just let other people drive, if you will. But the events of 2020 brought me back out of retirement, and kind of sucks. It really does. We all know it sucks. So that's enough of that topic. Let's start talking about something more interesting to my general audience, although you guys seem to be on the same page as me with most of this stuff. So that's fair enough. Let's see if there's any interesting questions or comments. I'm going to take a sip of my poison here. Let's see if anybody comes up with any good questions or comments to get the ball rolling with anything specific. If not, I have sort of things I could talk about. Have you guys been liking those polls, by the way? You guys enjoying those polls? The poll, I don't really like doing the short videos, but I gotta say, it's kind of fun because on Sunday I'll get to my day job, and I'll just start recording quick videos. And it kind of works. You know, I'll just do a bunch of them. I'll try to get like a week's worth of videos and poll questions up. And I may have to slow them down at some point, because one a day, like I'm gonna burn out on that. Like, there's no question I'm gonna burn out on that pretty quickly. But until I do, you know, it's kind of interesting. Let's see. Not a very chatty night tonight, guys. All right, well, that's okay. I can figure out something to talk about. But I've been putting up these polls to try to keep things going around here. And let me see. You know what? Let me pop up. Let me get my screen open here. And I'm going to read some of the responses and things if you guys want. Let's see. Let's see here. Open a new window. Oh, there's a lot of people streaming tonight. That's why. Oof. Nobody like related to what I do, but a lot of people who stream. A lot of streams tonight. All right, let's see.
Yeah, it's popular.
Thursday is a popular night, my wife says.
A lot of the YouTubers I watch do that too.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go through. Let's start at the beginning, guys. So for those of you who missed some of these polls, let's go through some of these polls and let's take a look at them. All right. Not the like yes, no ones. Like, have you ever experienced ego death or anything like that? That's kind of like not really that exciting, is it? You know? Let's see. Let's get the popular ones. That was a popular one. Okay, so one of the first ones I did. Oh, I got some chats. Let's see them chats first. There we go. It's like the chat stop for a minute. 7LBX77 says hello. And Joshua says, yes, the poll is engaging for your extended audience. Odo says, Jesus said we can do greater works than him. Does this mean we can be superhero-like? Ooh, it's a good question, actually. Gogo says, Thorne, hi, legend, how are you? And Atropa says, I saw them all. Good for you. Thank you, Atropa. Yeah, the polls are great. Okay, good. So you guys are enjoying the polls. So I'm going to try to keep them going for a little bit. Maybe I'll give my wife access to my account and have her like post a few polls too every now and then. That might be a good idea. Or have her come up with some poll questions. But let me touch on Odo's comment first. So Odo says, Jesus said we can do greater works than him. Does this mean we can be superhero-like? So, obviously, you know, there's some disconnect between what we all sort of do, practice, think about, talk about, and Christianity as, you know, a religion, okay? But if you guys pay attention to what Christianity does, a lot of the practices of Christianity are, you know, not unlike what people do. You know, prayer, some people would say, is like a form of ritual, magic ritual. You know, and this idea, like Jesus said we can do greater works than him, you know, what is a superhero? Like, what does that even mean? One of the things that's always kind of been interesting to me is this question of, like, what exactly would a superpower be and why? Let me give you an example, okay? To my dog, I'm a god. I can go into the kitchen, I can grab food, I can walk over, you know, things that she can't. I can open doors. I can get in that box outside and drive around and take her places. I control, you know, pretty much everything in her life. When she poops, I can scold her if she doesn't poop in the right spot. If she poops in the right spot, I can reward her. To the dog, I'm a superhero. I can literally fly. She can't, unless she gets on the plane with me. I'm a superhero as far as my dog's concerned. Am I really, though? So what makes me not a superhero? If I go back 1,000 years, if I go back 200 years, if I go back 100 years, if I go back 50 years and I show them this piece of shit in my pocket, I'm like Batman. At the very least, I'm that kind of a superhero. What the fuck does a superhero mean? What is a superhero? Right? A superhero, like, if you're a comic book type of person, which I never really was, I do like pop culture, of course. If you're like a superhero type of person, a pop culture type, a comic book kind of person, it's always been it's not their powers that makes them a superhero. There's been many like story arcs where the superhero loses their power and they're still a fucking hero. So what makes a superhero? Superhero is someone, you know, at least according to the mythology of superheroes, that does things. It has nothing to do with what powers you have. It has everything to do with will. It has everything to do with will, quite honestly. You know, doing what you will. And generally for the greater good, right? Superheroes don't usually do what they do for the greater evil. They usually do what they do for the greater good. And they might be a dark hero. Maybe they're a very selfish person, but somehow, you know, their story compels us to be better. So it's for the greater good. Take a story like Doctor Strange, right? He starts off as this asshole who's full of himself. And he ends up getting his fingers fucked up in an accident. At least that's the movie version. And ends up going to, Nepal and friggin' ends up meeting the Sorcerer Supreme and gets kicked out of his body. And, right, he becomes something better. So what is a superhero? Superhero is it's a myth. It's an archetype. Hercules is Superman. Superman and Hercules. And Superman has a little bit of Jesus thrown in him. So when Jesus says, let's go from, let me put my Christian hat back on, right? Like I was once upon a time. And let's put that hat back on. What did Jesus mean by that? Did he mean that you'd be able to like rub people's eyes and make them see again? Did he mean that you could divide fish and loaves of bread amongst thousands of people? No, that's not what it meant, right? It meant that there's nothing stopping you. You don't need superpowers to do the right thing. I am not a moralistic person. I'm based preferably on compassion, right? I don't go by some moral doctrine that says you must do this, you must do that. I look at things and I go, I try to recognize the divine in them that is in me, and seeing that, I try to act with compassion. And in fact, I shouldn't even put it like that. I don't try. I do act with compassion. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes ego and selfishness gets in the way. But my default is to be as compassionate. What does that even mean, right? What does that... Let's for a minute, let's talk about compassion. Just for a minute. What's compassion? Beyond just the recognition that it's the same divine being in all things, let me present you guys with a scenario. Let's say you're walking down the road and you live in like the city or somewhere, like someplace where there's homeless people or something, and you come across a homeless person. Now, you don't know anything about their life. You don't know anything about what they do. You don't know why they're there. You don't know whether they're really homeless or faking it. You just see somebody who, as far as you can tell, unless they're really good at makeup and shit, they're probably homeless, okay? You can take them at their face value. So you see a homeless person sitting there with their hand out like a little cup, and you just won the lotto. And you're not poor. Like, you're somebody who's doing okay. You don't need money. You just won the lotto. Not a lot of money. Maybe you won $50. What do? Now, this is a bit of a trick question, but I'm going to wait a second. What do you do? Everybody answer that question if you don't mind in the chat. I'll wait a second. I'll take a sip. What do? You pass this guy. He's homeless. You just won $50 in the lotto. What do? Give you guys just a minute to answer that question. Now, while you're answering that question, I want you to think about your answer for a minute. Because what you do and why you do it are important questions when it comes to compassion. What was your reasoning? Why did you do what you did? I want you to think about why you did what you did. And I want you to think about your reasoning. All right, we got a lot of answers. Okay, good. And a lot of people would try to do a very kind gesture. A lot of you guys would do a very kind gesture. Lord Malthus said nothing. I'm too broke, buddy. Honesty is a good thing. I prefer honesty, by the way. Odo says, because that homeless person is me and in parallel universe, I'll give him some money. Okay. All right. Okay, so you guys are thinking about it, and I like seeing you guys thinking about it. That's really good. So compassion, true compassion has no ego in it. True compassion has zero ego in it. Number one. True compassion is caring. It definitely cares. It sees in the other the self, but there's no ego in it. The truly compassionate person is just as likely to walk on by as they are to put money in their pocket or offer them food or some other help. A truly compassionate person, it has nothing to do with what you do. A truly compassionate person is based upon the true reasoning that goes into it. So if you walk up and you walk past the homeless person, if you give them money and the reasoning for giving them any money had anything to do at all whatsoever with feeling guilt, that wasn't a compassionate act. You were covering your own ass. Let me repeat that. Some people, you may need to think about that for a minute. If you're walking past that homeless person on the street and they're holding their little cup and you got $50 and you think even for a moment, I'll feel guilty if I don't give them that money. So you give them some money, all or some of it, that was not a compassionate act. That was actually a selfish act, and in many systems, that's a karmic act. Now, if there's a lot of other ways that could turn out. Maybe you decided to give them money because you're looking at them and thinking, wow, that poor person needs my help. That person needs my help. That person needs that person needs me. Me. Egoistic act. You did not act with compassion because it was still about you. You're judging their situation. You don't know if they're there for a reason or not. You don't know if the reason they're there is because they're learning a life lesson. You don't know if they're a drug addict. You don't know if your help is enabling them or not. For all you know, you giving them money is enabling them to be a bum. Maybe if they starve tonight, maybe they'll stop buying crack. Maybe they'll stop doing the thing that makes them homeless. Compassion is always honest. It's not done because someone will judge you. It's not done because you worry about the other person. A compassionate person is equally likely to walk on by as they are to put money in the person's pocket, except their reasoning will not have selfishness attached to it. I like Kelly Meadows' answer. I just need a dinner companion. That's cute. I like that. Clever. True compassion is spontaneous always. It doesn't need a reason. It will always have empathy in it. Absolutely, for sure. There's no question about that. You'll definitely be like, you'll feel something, but it's going to be a spontaneous act. And Alexander C is pointing out very pragmatic points. Depends on where you are. Yes. I mean, I worked in the city many years. I do know that, there was many times that I would, realize that homeless person was not really in need of my help. They didn't need it. And, that one that's like drooling on the ground, like that's a different story. But a truly compassionate person recognizes that the struggles people go through are just as valuable to them as the assistance you might give them. And sometimes it's more valuable. Sometimes letting someone hang themselves is the most important and compassionate thing you can possibly do. Enabling someone doesn't help them. Again, I'm not talking about like that means you should walk past them. But I'm suggesting that a lot of people's reaction is a conditioning. It's a karmic conditioning. You are acting because out of guilt or a feeling of doing the right thing or something like that. It's not because of a spontaneous empathy. I like to think that most of my best compassionate actions, there was no forethought. I just lurched into motion the moment I saw whatever it was. Sometimes lurching into motion means walking away, by the way. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is walk away. Alan Watts put it really the best. He said, kindly let me help you or you will drown, said the monkey to the fish as he carried him safely up a tree. And Atropa says, I just want to end suffering, but that, no judgment on you, Atropa, but that is an egoic action. You can't end suffering for people. And you might be enabling more suffering in their life by giving them a handout. Now, here's an alternative situation. Let's say that homeless guy genuinely asks you for help. They come up to you and you have no reason to doubt that they need help. Okay? Correct, Alexander C. Be wary of that compassion. I see somebody else has been in the city a lot. I could totally, yeah. Totally see you've been in the city like me. You know what's out there. But let us presume, this is just a hypothetical, remember. Let us presume that this person legitimately needs help. You know, let's change the scenario. Let's take it off a homeless guy, right? That's a little too baggagey. Let's take the homeless guy out of it. You're driving down the road. Here's a better one. You're driving down the road. You're late for work. You see someone on the side of the road. They have a flat tire. They have a child in their arms. And they clearly don't have a phone. They're like waving at people to stop for help. You have a tire jack in the car, and you have the ability to do a tire change. Do you stop? Hypothetical scenario, do you stop? Now that one seems more easy, like, oh, well, this is a person genuinely in need, they're waving, they're asking for help. What do? Well, you're probably going to stop. You're probably going to stop. But that's your answer. I'm probably going to stop. But how many of you really would? How many of you would actually stop? How many of you are going to say, I would stop, I would stop? How many of you really would stop? Sincerity is the better part of compassion. How many of you would actually stop? Don't tell me you would stop if you wouldn't stop. Does that mean you lack compassion if you wouldn't stop? Or does it mean that you're more compassionate because you wouldn't stop? Or does it mean you're more compassionate if you do stop? Let me ask you that question. Let's ask that question. This is actually a litmus test. Are you more compassionate for stopping or less compassionate for not stopping in that scenario? What do you feel about that? Lord Malphus has these great answers. Yes. So we called the cops on him, I guess, for jacking up her car. I'm waiting for people's answer. People are working on it. I see people working on the answer. Does stopping mean more compassion or less? What or is going by mean less? What do you think it means? Some of you guys might struggle with this one. I don't see many people answering whether it's more compassionate or not. Maybe you guys know it's a trick question? Is it more compassionate to stop or less compassionate to keep going? I don't think anybody wants to answer that one. Alexander's trying to sort of ask, trying to make a question point. All right, I'm going to presume nobody gets an answer. I'm going to presume nobody wants any brownie points for trying. Okay, if you think that it is more compassionate to stop, that is a sign of egoic thinking. Stopping or not stopping, the actions are irrelevant. Compassion has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with you or your actions at all whatsoever. Compassion is something else. This is why it's so hard to be compassionate. Compassion is not about the action. It's not about your feelings. It's not about trying to do what's right. There's no trying involved. Compassion is pure spontaneous empathy, and then what happens after is irrelevant. Spontaneous empathy and everything else. There is no right or wrong answer to any given question except based on the immediacy of the situation. It's compassion is completely fluid. It's water. Compassion is a water element. It has no form. It is only in motion. It's just a flow. Compassion is not about action. Compassion is not about you and how you feel. Compassion is about true. When they say selflessness, this is where the right-hand path gets stupid. The right-hand path says you must be selfless in all things, meaning you have to be some kind of humble, oh, I never think about myself. I'll give you the shirt off my back. That's what they think of as selfless. That's the most egoistic thing imaginable. That's not selfless. That's fucking arrogant as fuck. Selflessness in compassion means you do not take the self into account. It is a spontaneous, empathic flow, period. Sometimes that means all you do is go, oh, that poor thing, and keep driving. It doesn't mean that you necessarily hurt yourself or give up something or enable bad actions. There's no right or wrong answer as a blanket. There's no general rule to it. Compassion doesn't mean you always help people. Compassion means something else. Always. This is why a truly compassionate person can be the villain of a tribe. Believe it or not. There's a story about this Zen monk. Let's see if I can remember the story right. This is actually a really good story. There's this Zen monk in this village. This is like a Japanese story, right? There's a Zen monk in a village, and this young girl ends up getting pregnant at a young age, unmarried, and she has the kid out of wedlock, and it's a poor family. And the person who got her pregnant would be in a heap load of fucking trouble, would lose honor, the whole 9 yards, so she can't admit who it is. And she ends up telling her parents that it was the monk that got her pregnant. Now the Zen monk, when he's confronted with this, because the parents get pissed off because they think this monk fucking took advantage of our daughter, got her pregnant. Now the monk, he doesn't have like the honor that like everybody else has. To him, it doesn't matter. He could get accused of whatever. Doesn't matter to him. And when they accuse him of it, instead of saying he did or didn't do it, he just said, oh, is that so? That's it. Is that so? And they, accuse him of this and that, and they demand that he helps take care of it, and blah, 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 blah. So he, after a while, he does everything he can. He just starts helping the girl and the child. In fact, at some point, he takes the child in. And he takes them both in, and he works, and he does what he does as a monk, and he takes care of them, and he feeds them, and they're constantly berating him, and he says, is that so? Is that so? Finally, after several years, the child's almost grown up. And the girl is finally mature enough, and she finally admits to her family, she says, listen, the monk didn't do this to me. I had an affair with that, other family guy, and the child is his. It's not the monk's. He's innocent, and we've done a horrible thing to him. And the whole village comes to apologize to him. And when they confront him to apologize to him, all he says is that so? Is that so? Was his actions rooted in, oh, I have to help this person? Were those actions rooted in ego at all? A lot of stupid people hear that story and think the point of that story is you're supposed to help the kid anyway and be totally, humiliated and have no sense of honor. No. The reason he helped is because he just genuinely cared. It had nothing to do with honor or because it was the right thing to do or because the child needed help. And he felt like, oh, I have to help people. He just cared. He saw people in need and it was his way. It was his compassionate way. And by doing that, the girl learned a valuable lesson. But it could have been done the other way. He could have said, not my child, sorry. It almost wouldn't have mattered what he did. In fact, you'll notice in that story, he actually did nothing. He didn't act. He didn't say, I'm going to take care of that child. He just let them do what they were going to do, and he just went along with the flow of life. That's another side of compassion. It's when you just go along with the flow. There was no intentional compassion. There was no, I have to help this kid and this girl. It was, this is just how it is. Is that so? That's why the moral of the story is that so? That's why he says, is that so? Just, oh, is that so? Okay. Does that mean that if it really came push to shove, he would have let them kill him or something? No, probably not. He was in no danger and it did him no harm. The child was an innocent. The girl was foolish. And a lot of people hear that story and go, what an idiot. Maybe. There's no legend about you for not doing it though, is there? Alexander C. says, fake compassion is a form of feeding and reinforcing the ego in a sense. Bingo! So a while back, I did a video, Compassion of a Stone. Something like that. It was a short video about swatting flies. And I made this big deal about should you swat a fly or not. It's the same scenario. If a fly lands on your arm, you've heard people say oh, he's so gentle, he wouldn't hurt a fly. Is that really compassion or is that something else? If you don't swat the fly, you're enabling that fly to be weak. If you do swat the fly, you're probably going to miss. So in a way, it's survival of the fittest here. If you swat the fly, that fly must be quick enough to evade your swat. If it's not, it dies, its genes die with it. If it goes on and flies away, it's more likely to procreate, meaning a fast fly will procreate, meaning the flies will be faster from now on because of you. So you're ignoring the fly and saying, let it be on me, let it eat my food, let it bite me. That's not compassion necessarily. You may think so in the moment. That's right, Atropa. That feeling is really important. She says, believe I have went past a lot of people on the street because I know the game. I don't just go crazy saying I got to help everyone. It's like I said, I get a feeling. And that feeling is kind of what I'm talking about. There's a spontaneous empathy that hits you. And sometimes that spontaneous empathy tells you to leave people alone. In fact, it happens to me a lot. It tells me to be like, nope, Let them suffer. Let them go through this. They need to go through this. That's the only way they're going to learn. Sometimes it means being a dick. Sometimes it means attacking someone. I mean, not physically. Of course, man, I get physically if someone's attacking you, yeah. I mean, on YouTube, I got to act like the law matters, right? So sometimes it means doing things that are not necessarily good in the eyes of the world. Sometimes it means doing something that other people might think of as evil or bad or wrong. Sometimes. Because if you're worried about what the world thinks of you, it's not compassion. If you're worried about your honor, it's not compassion. If you're worried about how you're going to feel, it's not compassion. If you're worried about playing a role in someone else's life, that is not compassion. That's all about you. It's not compassion. The irony is compassion, when it is the center of how you operate, has a funny tendency to put you out in a position where most people recognize it. Like I said, that monk didn't go out of his way to do the right thing. And yet there's a legend about him doing the right thing. This is why I don't do the objective morality thing. There's only one rule. And that rule is compassion. That's the only rule that you can put down on paper. You can chisel it into stone. An enlightened understanding of compassion, when chiseled into stone, is timeless and will last for every species, every generation, everywhere. It is universal. Nature functions. People don't realize this. People don't know to look at this, but nature is compassionate. When you watch wolves tearing apart an old sickly deer or a young fawn, you might not think, oh, wow, that's nature being compassionate. That's nature being scary. No, that's nature being compassionate. Those wolves are ensuring that only the strongest survive. And it's in their best interests, in fact. Because if the strongest don't survive, there won't be enough deer for the wolves to eat. And if the deer get really fast and are hard for the wolves to catch, then that means the wolves have to get stronger. It's a mutual benefit for them to struggle. Compassion has struggle built into it. Compassion has conflict built into it. The natural world is ultimately fully compassionate. It doesn't look like it to people based in moralistic thinking where you have to help everybody or you have to be, risk averse. Our whole society has become so risk averse. Nobody accomplishes shit. Look around you. How many people are willing to go on a limb? Look at what I do. This isn't that big a risk, but it's quite a big risk compared to most people. Most people wouldn't do this. Most people wouldn't speak their minds so plainly and talk about these things and risk having people get pissy at them and the witch wars and family who might not like what you're doing. How many of you guys can do that? How many of you guys are willing to risk things? I'm sure a lot of you, to be fair. But a lot of people wouldn't risk anything. It's beyond them to risk. Clown asks, where's the creepy doll? Dude, that doll's been gone for a while. Where have you been? I don't know when I last took that doll down. I think I ended up putting it... my wife says I packed it in the closet. I sort of let it go. Yeah, I haven't really done anything with that in a while. I might actually put it back out. That doll was actually a really good focus for thought forms. That thing was pretty potent. Kind of creeped a lot of people out. You know what it is? I cleaned this area out recently, and because I let it get It was spirited. Yeah, I think it was, Clown. I think it was. I mean, there was a lot of things that I did with it, so it would have. But, you know, things, it can come and go. It can come, and it can, you know, it's sort of like, if you don't feed it, it goes away. Like, it might get bitchy at first and it'll go away, that kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of thought forms, if you dismiss them, basically, they go away. So I may have to, like, reattach. Yeah. I had 2 dolls behind me, but that one was really cool. I like that one. I forgot about that one. I may put it back up in the chamber. That'd be cool. Not in here. I don't think I'll put it in here. But I just had to clean out around here because I just, you know, as I said in my last stream, and Atropa pointed out, I'm a surrounder. I'm not a hoarder. I'm a surrounder. What's up, Alpha? It's been a little bit. How you doing? All right, so let's go to some of these questions. Let me try to find a fun one. Okay, there's one that came up the other day. Was it this one? Okay, this was a good one. This was a really good one. Some of these are a quiz to see if people are, like, sort of paying attention to what my content usually talks about. And I'm interested to know what people think. You know, like, how many of you guys sort of get where I'm going, get what I'm saying? Or maybe, like, you know, what'd you miss? What'd you catch? Like, what do you think the answer is? And sometimes I think of it like I'm a teacher or something, and I'm like, is the class been paying attention? That's probably not the right attitude to have. So forgive me if that's my attitude and it's wrong. I know it's not necessarily the rightest thing in the world. But here was the question. What comes first? And it had 5 answers. Intention, action, will, desire, and there is no first or last, all is the eternal Tao. Now that's one of my favorite questions that I've asked, because it told me a lot about my audience. That told me a lot about where you're at in what you understand. And a lot of people are going to go, Thorne, you don't know everything. You don't know the truth that everybody, you know. Look, it may sound opinionated, but there's things that can be realized like a sunset. There's things that can be realized that it's not a belief. It's a thing that it transcends belief. It transcends all of that. And it is a realization and an awareness. So let's go through those answers. And I'm going to give you guys, like, what people said. And I'm not judging anybody if you gave a different answer, by the way, even though I might be critical of your answer. You're probably awesome. So the number 1 answer was desire with 46%. 46% of you said that the first thing to come was desire. That tickles the shit out of me. That really does. The first thing to come is desire. Alexis is almost right. Chicken and the egg. It is a little bit of a chicken and an egg question. That's right. But there is an answer. And it's not a fence-sitting answer. So a lot of people said desire. 46%. The problem with that answer is that desire is not an initiator. It's a reaction to something that already is. You don't desire unless there's a lack. You don't desire unless there's something that you believe you need. Desire can't come first. In fact, desire on that chain of events is actually dead last. Desire comes after everything. It comes after even action, because action is the state of things. Desire is always an echo of ego. It's a reaction. It is never a cause. Not only that, but where does that desire come from? What is the source of your desire? Follow that backward. Chase that little fucker all the way back to where desire comes from. Desire isn't a spontaneous thing. Yeah, right. That's right, Atropa. She says, right. Desire doesn't come out of nowhere. Correct. There's a source for desire always. It's not a spontaneous jump. There's always, if you can recognize it as desire, that's an ego thing. Ego does that. Ego is always a reaction to what is. It's never, there's nothing, there's nothing bad about ego. Ego is just a habit. Habits can be good or bad. And ego can be either one. You can negate the habit a little bit too. A negated ego is like when you have ego death and you're like in La La Land. You can temporarily negate that ego, I suppose. Not you. I mean, you can't negate ego. That's like trying to talk your way out of a talking box or something. It doesn't happen. Desire is always an echo or a reflection of something else that's already there. It's not first cause. That's for sure. That is for sure. Okay, so let's go to the next most answered answer. Actually, let's skip that. The next one, let's just go to the top of the list. Intent. Someone's going to say, well, it's my intent that is, what comes first? Intention. Well, that's a bit of a trick question. It's a bit of a trick option. Because intention is a kind of desire, isn't it? It's a kind of reaction, but it sort of preempts other reactions. You intend to do something because it is already a certain way, or you want it to be a certain way, or so intention is not really first. Intention may be before desire, but there are times when desire comes before intention. I desire to be a better person. Desire and intent are kind of the same thing. They're different, but they're very, very, like they kind of weigh the same. They're not the answer. Like if this was Egypt and I was Horus wearing your, not Horus, but oh my goodness, Anubis or whatever, and I'm weighing your heart. That would be a pretty heavy heart if it was based on desire and intention. Very heavy. So let's go to action. Nobody picked action, which is interesting because action is another word for one of the other things. That's interesting. It's a little bit of a word game, though. People who didn't pick action, you're not necessarily wrong. Like, that's not a right or a wrong. Some of these answers are doubles or triples. You guys just don't realize it. Some of these answers are the same answer. I've just put them in a different way. So I wanted to see what people would think. So nobody picked action. A lot of people picked will. Pretty good. That's a good answer. Because will is, well, it's an ineffable quality, right? Will is what is done. Will is inevitable. It is always your will that is done. People don't realize that because people live in a schizophrenic mentality. People live in a schizophrenic mentality, not multi-personality, schizophrenic thing. Multi-personality, schizophrenia, whatever. They think that their will is something they can control. That's one of the ones that kills me, okay? It's one of my biggest pet peeves with chaos magicians is they think that they can change their will. Like they can use desire and intention to change the will. So they can will their desire and intention to change their will. They can will themselves to change. It's very circular reasoning. And they don't get that. They'll be like, oh, I can use my conscious mind to influence my subconscious. Part of the definition of your subconscious is that it's actually what's in control of you. That's part of its definition. It's part of your shadow. It's not just a little influence. See, Western culture is left brain oriented. We think like thinking is what's in control. Thinking is always a response to what is already there. I've told you guys this story a million times. If I told you once, there is studies done where they will give you a question. They'll say, I want you to pick from a left hand or a right hand option. And they will put electrodes on your head and they will do a baseline reading of a couple of questions. Once they've got the pattern down, they'll ask you to do the test for real. And they'll say, in a moment, I want you to spontaneously choose left or right. And as soon as you feel that you've made a decision, hit one or the other. And they will monitor that person's brain activity. And sure enough, when the person decides to hit that button and does it, it is actually long, measurably a long time, sometimes many seconds, between when they realized they meant to do it and did it and actually got the idea to do it. Because they map the brain out, they check the parts of the brain that fire when you make a decision, and they can tell which one you've decided already. They can predict 7 seconds before you even know about it which one you're going to pick. It gives you a lot of information about the algorithms they use on you, by the way, in social media. If they have electrodes tied up to your head and they get a baseline reading on you, they can figure out what you're going to do before you realize it. Without even an algorithm involved, they literally can, your brain literally knows what it's going to do long before you think about it. Sometimes 7 seconds or more in advance, guys. 7 fucking seconds. You think you're in control? Who's that you that thinks they're in control? That you is something that's being controlled by something subconsciously. You think you're going to turn around and tell that thing what to do? No, that thing is what's telling you to think that. The left-hand brain, and this is not an accurate neuroscientific position, by the way. This is just an analogy because the actual thing is way more complicated than left or right brain. The left-hand side of the brain that we attribute all of this stuff to, the decision-making, it's actually more like a veto machine. It's more like a sanity checker. The subconscious goes through, decides, guides, sort of does, and then the left brain analyzes what's already there and then authorizes it. It says, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. And if it's an emergency, that part of your brain don't even enter into the equation. In fact, you can tell 2 different fighters. You can tell a really inexperienced fighter from an experienced one. The inexperienced fighter is thinking it through. And you can interrupt them very easily by engaging their thinking brain in a fight. You can be like, hey, where's the white go when the snow melts? And they'll be like, huh? And they fucking crumble. Someone who is based on training, who defaults to training like reaction, but it's not reaction, it's action. Like, if you're really good, it's not a reaction, it's action. It has nothing to do with reaction. You're acting and everyone else is reacting to you. But there's no thought. It's like your subconscious will is in control. So the will, you can't control will. Will is what is always done. Your will is always what is done. Now here's why it's a trick answer. Will is a correct answer, but so is action, and so is, there is no first or last, all is the eternal Tao. Because the eternal Tao is the divine will, is action. The eternal Tao is action, the eternal Tao is will. So, it was a bit of a trick question. Everybody gave me an answer. Nobody picked action because it sounds stupid. Well, action comes last. Obviously. Obviously, action comes last because it's action, of course. No, action is also what you're doing, isn't it? Including your will. Your will is part of action. There is always action. Action never ceases. Now, Yes, I know I'm a big proponent of block time universe where I say nothing changes. That's true. But from our perception, action is synonymous with the Tao. It's synonymous with will. There's no difference. Action is always ongoing, as is the Tao, as is the will. It's the same idea, plus 3 different ways. And Ash says, where the head goes, the body follows. And who points that head? Who moves that head? Right? Now, I know what you're saying because it's actually an important thing in spiritual, metaphysics, magic, etc. It's where you put your intention, right? And all that stuff. That's what we say. It's really where you put your attention. But where you put your attention, is that a choice? We're actually getting into free will territory here, aren't we? Maybe that'll be a better question for another time. Maybe we'll do the free will question on the next upcoming question poll. So basically, if you picked any of those 3 answers, in my opinion, opinionated as it is, you're right. If you pick the other 2, based on what I just said a few minutes ago, I think there's some learning to do. Okay. I think I need another drink. I get like really dry lately. Well, Anesh, here's the problem with choice. This is why I said free will might be a fun poll question. Choice is not free will. If you have a choice, you're weighing options and you have to choose. It's not really free will. Free will is something inevitable. It is something that you are not conscious of. Free will happens. And it is inevitable. It is a flow. Okay, thank you, sweetie. What does this have to do with anything? We were talking about compassion before. Compassion is a flow. It's not a choice. You don't have a choice. It is a flow. If you're choosing, that's not compassion. If you're choosing, that's not free will. If you're sitting there going, I'm going to do a left or a right hand thing, that is not free will. Now, your free will always be done, by the way. Will always be done. This is a thing this is why people get all hung up on free will versus determinism. They go, well, there's only one or the other. What if they're the same thing, guys? What if determinism and will are the same thing? It's ego that reacts to what is and says, oh, I get to choose that. But the thing that's saying that came long after the events. That's an echo of what already is in motion. In The Matrix, there's a scene where Neo meets the Oracle. I think it's the second or third one. I don't remember which one. And the Oracle is talking to Neo, and he's like, I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. Why'd I do this? And she says, you've already decided. You're just finding out why. So here's the rule, guys. Here's what I'm boiling it down to. That's right, Eddie. Free from what? That's the first question. When someone says, I have free will, I go, well, what is it free from? Is it free from determinism? Are you in a prison? If you have free will, that's a moot point. It doesn't make sense. If you have free will, that's your determinism, isn't it? No, because people are egoistic. And there's nothing wrong with having ego. The problem is egoism is an ignorance. Egoism that has been transcended of its ignorance is a completely different creature. The understanding of non-dualism or monism is that all is the divine. If all is the divine, then nothing is forbidden. If all is the divine, then all is the will of the divine. If all is the divine, the Tao is the divine's will. And you are that will in action. To a mortalistic, egoistic frame where you go, I'm me and that's you and I'm here and I'm not anywhere else and I'm in charge. I have power. From that perspective, You want free will to be a thing that you use to conquer the world. And you don't see the Tao as you. You see the Tao as some oncoming tidal wave that you've got to resist. That's all ego. And that's where suffering comes from. Free will is, if there's only one will, what is that will free from? If you understand the principles of non-duality, Wu Wei, Taoism, all of these things, if you understand those principles for what they really imply, what is the will free from? There is only the will. And that's all there is to it. If there's only the will, determinism and free will are the same thing. I asked people once a long time ago, I said, what if causality is your will? What if that deterministic thing is will? And it's inevitable, it's going to be that way. But because you're egoistic, you don't see that. You're so busy thinking that you're only here. And by answering that question and seeing the answers, I can tell who's still attached to ego or not. Or who knows how to parrot the right or wrong answer. People who spontaneously cling to this idea that they have control haven't experienced, well, you can't experience ego death. That's a bit of a play on words. You can't experience ego death. The ego can't experience ego death. But ego death is something that happens. When ego death happens, and the real you transcends all of this crap, it suddenly clicks, and you go, oh shit, what a fool I've been. And when that ego reforms, that ego is reformed, but now it's got like a new little like check mark on it. It's like ego plus. There's a good chance that that ego will realize that there's a flow that it is part of. It'll start to let go. And to someone who's like, one of the things that pisses me off about left-hand path philosophy and practitioners these days is left-hand path practitioners and philosophers have bitten the ego. They've fallen down the ego trap completely. They've literally, like, they saw a bear trap that said ego on it and they stomped right in the middle of it on purpose. And they're never going to get out. And a lot of them do it out of a rebellious spark where they think that that's like somehow resisting the Tao, the will, the divine, that they see as an external thing that is not themselves. That does sound good, heck. I like that. Ego plus. Yeah, make a t-shirt that says, I killed my ego. I know, that would be fucking great. I killed my ego. That'd be all right. Maybe that just tickles me. To me, that's a real good joke. I killed my ego, and all I got was this t-shirt. Dude, I'm making that shirt. I'm gonna make one or the other. I love those two. I don't think Anesh likes the conversation. I'm getting that feeling. He's deleting his comments. I don't know what happened. You know, he said belittling before. Maybe he thinks I'm targeting him for something. I don't know. That's like weird. The left-hand path traditionally was Vamachara. And Vamachara means unorthodox enlightenment. It means an unorthodox method. It doesn't mean you... it doesn't mean that you try to expand your ego into dimensions of importance beyond itself. That's actually kind of like backwards. Vamachara means, you know, the thing that people get wrong is they think ego is a thing that has to either be defeated or preserved. Like, they take two extremes. Like, I need to defeat my ego and get rid of it, or I need to preserve it indefinitely as a god, right? Both of those are the trap. Both of them are wrong. Both of them are ego, honestly. Only an ego says, I got to get rid of my ego. Oh man, I got to get rid of my ego. Why? Oh, it'd be so much better if I did. That's ego. That's still an expanding ego. That's not less ego. That's the same amount of ego as before, except now you've got a wall in front of it saying that's not ego. That's humility. That's why I can't stand people say be humble. It's like, fuck you, you fucking actors. Anyway, Anesh, I'm gonna assume that I'm also just playing with you. I hope you're doing good, Anesh, and if you're going to bed, good night, brother or sister, whatever you are. Good to seeing you. Good night. DH, have you experienced ego death? I love. That's why I said that's like a joke. I experienced ego death. No, you didn't. Anybody says I experienced. Now I know in linguistic terms, how else can you say it? But someone who goes, I experienced ego death. That's really. Okay. Trying to think of a good analogy for why that's silly. That's like having something that says, don't read this. It's an oxymoron. Now, deifying the ego as a left-hand path thing is fine. That sort of fits under Vamachara. Like, deification of the ego as a blasphemous act is fine. But that's still, if you want to deify the ego, you've got to dissolve it and reform it into something that is deific. Right? So it still requires, like, a dissolution to happen. You've still got to transcend the ego to deify it. People don't realize that, and they think to make the ego better, to like deify themselves, they've got to become more powerful and full of themselves. Oof. That's not correct. I know that sounds opinionated, like, oh, you have all the answers. No, that is irrational, and given the right discussion, it's not hard to prove that that's irrational. What's up, Jay Sauber? Thank you for that friendly super chat. I appreciate that, brother. Yes, Eddie, I still want to do that. I might even do that in my next book. Just do that for a joke. Just put it in there somewhere. The meaning of life, I'll put it like as a bonus material. The meaning of life is this page left intentionally blank. So Eddie says, if there's one thing I'm learning from this latest evolution, it's that I'm not doing anything. A man does, a God is. I just am. The thing that I am is part of a process that is the real me. You're getting there, brother. There's different ways of describing the divine. The divine that says I am is the ego. That's the demiurge. That's the false deity. That's why, Yahweh, I am that I am, at least as it's stated, is an egoistic statement and is not the divine itself. It is a mask for the divine. It might be a deity. It might be a good one or a bad one, depending upon how you view things, but that's the truth. The divine is. It is not an I, it just is. A God is. A God is impersonal. The true God, the true divine is impersonal. It's not a he, it's not a she. It simply is. So, the divine is. Divine is. Just is. The only thing we can truly say about reality, the divine, the true self, is. In fact, that would be what I would call God if I was being a funny asshole creating my own religion. I say, and there was this God named is, because that's what it was. It is. God is. Done. God is what? Exactly. What do you mean? God is big? Sure. God's here? Yeah, God is here. God isn't real? No, you're right. God isn't real either. Is, period. Just is. And anything you want to put after it is just something that is a qualifier. God is. The divine is. It's just is. And people talking about preserving the will and stuff like that, imposing it. I mean, the ego is rooted in a sense of conflict. So by conflict, I don't mean like you hate or are at war or you're trying to destroy. Conflict that's a conflict. Are my hands at war? No, but they're in conflict. My hands are colliding. They're both trying to go like that, but they're getting in the way. That's a conflict. That's a conflict. The light that is coming off of things and hitting your eyes is in conflict with your eyes. The light wants to go that way. Your eyes want to be here, but the light's hitting your eyes. Conflict. All force is conflict. All ego is conflict because ego is in conflict with what is. Someone, again, linguistics are a problem. I have to say someone is egoless when they're not in conflict. When they're in the flow. I guarantee you that every single person in this conversation, sometime during the day today, you were probably egoless and didn't know it. Everyone's like, oh, have you ever experienced ego death? It's a fair question, to trouble, by the way. I play a joke on the words, but it's a fair question. But every single one of you, there was an egoless moment in your life today. But because you have not trained yourself to recognize that, you just skipped over it like a rock skipping off the surface of a pond. Have you ever done something that you were so engrossed in it, you had no concept of time or the self or anything? If that's ever happened, then that is what ego death is like. It is a complete abandonment of any sense of, it's not even just that you don't think about it. That too is not necessarily ego death. Even if you don't have any active thinking going on, there can still be ego involved. It's just not acknowledged the same way. If you've ever just been lost in your activities completely, that is, a lot of people go, oh, I did a heroic dose of shrooms and I experienced ego death. Linguistics aside for a moment, a lot of people confuse the flashy visions and shit for ego death. Ego death is actually not the visions. It's not even the, oh my God, I'm dying. Even that is not ego death. That fear is a before and after of ego death. Ego death has nothing to do with the fear of I'm dying right now. Like that's the heroic dose of shrooms where you're like, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm dying now. This is my death. I took too much. I'm dying. Whoa. That's not ego death. That's ego dying. Ego death is the thing that comes after that. If you do transcendental meditation is a terrible word. But if you do transcendental, what people call meditation, if you do transcendental that, you're going om, 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 and then the spaces in between the oms, you're having complete stillness, om, 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 and you may reach a point where you realize there's no you. That realization, though, is not ego death. That comes after that thought, hey, there was no me a moment ago. That wasn't ego death. That was the realization of it afterwards. So ego death is not, it's not an experience. In fact, if I can be brutally honest, ego is a cloud in front of a blue sky. The blue sky is eternal, but the cloud is passing. You are not that cloud. You're the blue sky. So ego death is always there. You're just covering it up. People make a big deal about ego death, including me sometimes, because it's sort of like it's become this sacrament in spiritual circles to say, to talk about, to pretend. This is why I made a video a while ago. I don't know if it's still up. I took it down. I have to remake it. Kill your ego and the other bullshit stories you've been told to do. Kill your ego. The most arrogant thing you can do, the most egoistic thing you can do is try to kill your ego. You want to kill your ego? Get really into something and do it. Fucking, go boink your significant other so good you're not thinking about anything else. Go for a drive and just let your mind wander, but not about things about you. Just be in the moment. Do Zazen. Play a video game and completely lose yourself in the game. All of those things are forms of ego death. Thank you, Eddie, for that technical information. And that's correct. Psychedelics and other things, not just psychedelics. There's other ways to do this that are clinical, I guess we could say, that aren't necessarily psychedelics, believe it or not. There are other practices that do the same thing, not just meditations. Things that are even less healthy, to be fair. Getting knocked unconscious can do that. Suffocating. There's a lot of weird things that can cause those parts of your brain to just go, okay, I'm going to sleep. Someone who's in a psychotic moment, believe it or not, because people think ego death means you're this peaceful, enlightened being. No, not necessarily. Someone's having like a complete psychotic break and they're not in there. They're just wildly thrashing around with rage and they're not thinking about anything. Right? They're just in total reptile brain. That's an ego death too, by the way. People go, no, that's not ego death. Ego death means you're going to be, oh, no. Ego death just means this whole idea of you dissolves completely. So ego death means something about identity being subsided, being overlooked, the cloud parting. It can be like detachment. Like early stages are a little bit like detachment. You can feel like you're drifting away. And like, it's almost like out of body, I guess. But it's not necessarily out of body. Don't confuse the two. Out of body can still be very egoistic and shit. But out of body is like one of the ways that it can manifest initially. Because one of the first things you've got to do is realize this ain't you. If you're doing it on purpose, I mean. Like if you're trying to meditate your way into it. One of the first things you've got to do is negate all of your intellectual rationalization for why you're here. You've got to negate the belief that this is you. You've got to negate the belief that you're your story. You've got to negate, because your rational left brain is what makes you cling to your ego the most. When your rational left brain, this is why doing no mind meditation and things like that are so important. The point is not to have no mind. The point is that when your mind is really buzzing away with thoughts and feelings and ideas about yourself, ego is really hard to get rid of. But I say get rid of, I mean to relax and let go. Now, let's say you've silenced your mind. Ego can still be present. It's now a subconscious passive realization. Getting to the next step, there's no trick to it. This is why people sit there going, om for 30 years and don't experience it. They may completely blank their brain out and still go, yeah, but I never really got rid of my ego. It's always a surprise. You realize after the fact that ego was gone. And you realize before, sometimes if you're having like a heroic dose trip, you might realize it beforehand. But you're not going to realize it when it's happening so much. When it's happening, if you go, holy shit, I had ego death. No, that's the ego's back. Trust me. You want to know another time you had ego death today? I want everybody to think about what you dreamt about last night. You got that? Think about your dreams that you had last night. Now go 5 minutes before the first moment of your dreams. There you go. That was you in ego death. Thorne, I saw nothing. I was asleep. No, you weren't. I mean, yeah, your body was like in the state of what we call sleep. But in that moment, the divine was its most awake. In that moment, you were in oblivion, or so you think. You think oblivion is nothing. You think it's unconscious nothing. No. What do you think it looks like to see everything all at once? It looks like nothing. It looks like oblivion. It looks like being unconscious. Because being conscious is way more vivid and aware and like boom, 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 boom. But if you close your eyes and really quiet and still everything out, you realize that oblivion is actually omniscience. It just doesn't look like anything because omniscience is aware of everything equally. All polarities collide and become one enigma, one infinite is. And that is has no detail. It has no meaning. It has no anything. It seems like the oblivion of death. And that's the thing you're afraid of, but you do it every night when you go to sleep. When you die someday, haha, it's another play on words joke for those of you who get the joke. This is why Ellen Watts said in response to, what is it like to die? What is it like to be dead? His answer to that was, what is it like before you were born? What was that like? Did you notice it? You go, well, there was nothing. Except there's an awareness. There's still an awareness. It's just that awareness wasn't aware of something specific. It was timeless. It was eternal. It had no dimensionality. It had no form, no substance. But that doesn't mean you didn't exist. Because we know, even if we're a strict materialist and we don't believe in anything spooky, woo, and magical, the material that your body is made of was here. It just was in a different configuration. You didn't appear suddenly. You're always here. Now, some materialists, they think that consciousness is an emergent property of your brain bubbling away. And in a way, they're right. In a way. Consciousness, so let me give you an example. I want everybody to close your eyes, and I want you to put your hand out in front of you. Keep your hand open like this. And close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to just put your awareness on your hand. And I want you to sort of like, don't move it, be completely still. And I want you to just be aware of your hand and think about what that feels like. Well, if you sit with that long enough, you realize that there's no feeling that is hand. There's an awareness. I have a hand. I know I do. I know there's hand, but there's no specific feeling that is hand. There's no actual location. The only time you have location in this is when you visualize it. If you get rid of the visual, like if you were born blind and you had no sense of spatial dimension because of visual, where's your hand? Right? It's like, you know, if you try to like touch your nose with your eyes closed, like you can do it, but it's like, it's kind of a guess, right? It has nothing to do with like, it's like you just kind of mechanically know if I do that, I'm going to touch my nose. You know you have a hand, but the specific sensation of the hand isn't there. There's an awareness of being, but there's no consciousness of the hand. Now, take your index finger and your thumb and rub them together. Suddenly, your finger just appeared in your consciousness. That sensation, that's consciousness right there. That is conflict. That is consciousness, conflict, con. The word con is always there. Consciousness, con. The prefix con. Consciousness, contact, conflict, con. Awareness, open your fingers. Now you're aware, but you don't know what your hand is. Touch your fingers. Ah, that's it. I know what my hand is now. Your hand is an emergent property. Awareness is always there. Awareness is eternal. Consciousness is con. So think of awareness wrapping around and clapping itself. That's consciousness. Awareness is the divine itself, and awareness comes and becomes conscious of itself. Awareness, aware of itself, is consciousness. Consciousness, subject, object on some dimension. There's some dimension of not necessarily duality specifically, but there is a thing that you're conscious of. That could be yourself. That's fine. That's still non-dual consciousness. But consciousness would be the sheet of paper of infinity folding over. That's consciousness. Awareness is that sheet of paper opening and being unfolded. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Awareness, you can open your eyes now if you're not and look at the screen. Awareness, consciousness. Awareness, consciousness. That's the difference. So when you lose consciousness, you don't lose awareness. The thing is, awareness by itself without something to be aware of, specifically, is something that you overlook very easily because it's just not as exciting. Good point, Jockster. Yeah, I mean, there's a sensation there, and that becomes your hand, doesn't it? Now imagine that you didn't feel that. If you put your hand in a certain position, in a certain way, it's tough to do sometimes because there's environmental influence. So you get air blowing across it. It feels warm. Maybe you're wearing a ring. You feel it wiggling. Maybe you're moving your hand just a little bit. You feel the meat moving around. So you get a feeling of where your hand is. But think of it like a sensory deprivation tank, right? Go into a sensory deprivation tank. Your whole consciousness of your body will go away. And if you're lucky, you'll stay awake through that and you'll go, oh shit, what am I? If you can quiet your thoughts when that's happening, if you can subside your thoughts while you're in do a float session and do a deep no mind meditation while you're floating, and you won't need shrooms. I don't need to do the sensory deprivation because I've done it while just sitting in hell. When my wife drives me to my mom's, I do it, I'm going to say 4 out of 5 times. My wife will take me for a long drive somewhere because going to see my mom takes a while to go, or we'll be going upstate or something like that. If I go on a long drive, I'll just sort of sit, and after a while, and it's all just, it gets tuned out. And sometimes it's like it's like on the border of sleep, and I got to try not to fall asleep. And there's a spot right between sleeping and waking up where you're just like, you're there, but you're not. And there's deeper levels where you're actually even more. So one of the goals for certain practices, although I don't really focus on it, is to be conscious of awareness. So you could go into this weird thing where awareness, just aware, that's sleep death, right? But there's a part where you're aware and you're conscious of being aware, but you're not conscious of anything else. And that's a trippy thing that I've only done a handful of times. And there's probably so if you look up samadhi, and I'm not really good at the names and everything, there's depending upon which tradition, there's 5, 6, 7, I think it's 5 is normal, depths of samadhi. In fact, let me look it up. Let me see if I can tell you which one that is. Let's see. That's why I use like Gnosis, because to me, I call it Gnosis sometimes because I don't make it that sophisticated. I just go, okay, it is a thing. All right, so there's 3 layers of samadhi. Okay. This is what this website says. There's Laja Samadhi. That's the early stage, manifests itself as a trance-like state of peace during deep meditation. Then there's Savakalpa Samadhi. In this state, you have the power to control any thoughts without allowing them to affect you. Yeah, I don't know about... No, that doesn't sound... Maybe it is, but that's not the one I go with. Let's see. Buddhism. Detachment. Heightened experience of detachment. Jubilation fades away, sense of calmness. Yeah, no, that's a very experiential version of it. Doesn't fit what I'm thinking. This one's always about, like, weird shit. No. Anyway, I'm not going to find it just by Googling it, because most things are fucking New Age nonsense these days. Nothing worse, you go to, like, a website and it's, like, blinding light and all this shit. You know you're fucking looking at goofy shit. Give me a second, I'm reading, guys. Yeah, this one's a little bit better. This one's a little bit better. I'll put the link. I'm not going to say I salute everything they're saying here, but this one's a little bit better. So let me put this in the chat. If you guys are curious. I'm not going to read it all out to you. But if you check that out, that talks about a little bit of it, and it's actually not that bad. Oh, it's fucking Deepak Chopra. Get the fuck out of here. I hate that guy. I know people going, oh, you sound like Deepak Chopra. Nah, he's a fucking globalist stooge. But whatever. That's like when people say, like, oh, do you watch what's his name, Sadhguru? And on the one hand, I like Sadhguru, but he's also like, he's hanging out with fucking Klaus Schwab and shit, and he's, you know, like, I don't know, bro. But in all brutal honesty, like, you don't need to worry about, like, the one of the problems with a lot of practices is people get too deep into their own heads about it, and they get, like, one of the reasons I don't like this, like, 3 layers of samadhi shit is, even though it's look, I think that they're brilliant observations, they're great teachings, and if you have a real good teacher who really knows, those things are great. But if you're doing it by yourself, those things become a distraction because you idealize it instead. So if you're reading that and you're going, I didn't really achieve samadhi because I didn't get what they said, you're in stupid territory at that point. That's why you need a guru who's been there, who can guide you in that sense. And I hate the word guru when it's used in, like, people say, oh, he's a guru, like he's special. Guru just means someone who's been there before and is showing you the way. A real guru is not, like, better than you. A real guru, if there is such a thing, it is ultimately you, by the way. That's the ultimate guru. But if there is a guru that you're going to listen to, it's someone that is going to not tell you what a sunset looks like. They're going to say, if you sit there and face west for a while and you keep your eyes open at this area, you're going to see this bright light come down. That you'll know when you see the sunset. That's what a guru does. Guru doesn't say, well, it's going to be bright orange and it's going to do this. They'll tell you enough so that you'll recognize it. That's it. But Sadhguru is... I don't trust that man. I mean, there's somebody who brought up a story about how he killed his wife. And if what they're saying is true, which it looks like it is, then there's no reason to believe he didn't. I'm not saying that like, oh, it's allegedly, by the way. I'm not trying to poke fingers and get myself in trouble, but allegedly he killed his wife. And the story seems plausible. She died doing this miraculous thing. Her soul just left her body, and then he wouldn't let them do an autopsy on it. Yeah, it sounds about as believable as the 2020 election and what they're doing in Maricopa right now. Yeah, you're not allowed to see it, but there's no evidence that we stole it. Yeah, okay. There's no evidence that Sadhguru did anything to his wife because we never tested the body to see what she died from. We have no idea. She was doing this meditation, and she's just so enlightened, she just floated out of her body, and that was it. Yeah. Okay, sure. Mr. I hang out with Klaus Schwab. I hang out with Klaus Schwab, and I got this giant freaking mega church, Shaivist mega church in India. All right, sure. Something just don't. I'm not saying I wouldn't hang out with the guy. I probably would. I'd probably hang out with him and just I'd have to see firsthand. He's a wise guy. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean that like jokingly. He is very wise. He's very, very charming. He knows how to talk, and he makes very good points. And he's very, very knowledgeable. I'll give him a lot of kudos. But what happened to your wife, Sadhguru? And why do you hang out with Klaus Schwab? One could say that, you know, he doesn't judge and a person's a person. And if there's any chance that, you know, we can save soil, sure. But, I mean, you're hanging out with Klaus Schwab and fucking, I don't know, man. Maybe that's, you know, look, I shouldn't go too hard on that because, you know, there's pictures of all kinds of famous people hanging out with famous people. And it doesn't mean that they're all tied up together. Like, what was it? Trump and Epstein and all that. It doesn't mean that they're all like in bed with each other. It could just be that they were invited to the same forum and they were sat next to each other. Sure. That's possible. You know, I mean, if you asked me, if you said, you know, Thorne, we're going to do a symposium and Klaus Schwab is going to be there and he wants to meet you, do you think I'd say no? Let's be honest. You think I'd say no? What do you think I would do? Put your answer in the comments. What do you think I would do? You think I'd say no? Or you think I would find a way to swallow my shit and go anyway? And just to see what was up, just to be there, just to see it, just to read the guy, if nothing else. You think I would say no? Of course I'd probably go. I'm not stupid. I might be sitting there behind my breath going, ooh, I hope you choke on a bratwurst, you son of a fucking globalist bitch. But you think I would not go? Are they a tropa? $1,000? Just wow. I mean, I guess you got to do what you got to do when you have limited space. I suppose that's the excuse, but yeah. No, not only would I go to see Klaus Schwab, but I would ask him for the, I'd ask him to get the tailor who makes their robes for their creepy fucking, what is it, from what country? I don't forget which, maybe it's Poland. I would ask them for their tailor to like give me their robes. I want to know how to make those robes. I love the robes that he wears. Look up Klaus Schwab robes. Like those things are badass. I would wear those. They look like the lizard people from the 1980s version of V. Like when they wear those like cool vests and shit. Like that's such an 80s theme. I love it. I don't belong in this millennium. All right, let's see if there's any more of these posts we can get to. I love that what comes first one. That one was fun. I really should go through the paranormal activity one. The problem is there's so many comments on that. And some of them were really long. But the question was, have you ever seen a ghost or a poltergeist? And it was about 61% said yes, and about 39% said no. And I think that's really kind of interesting. That's actually a lot. And, you know, I'm sure some people, you know, some people will probably like make stuff up. But I know my audience, and a lot of you guys, at the very least, you believe what you saw. And that's good enough for me, at least, to get the story out of you. And I'm reading some of these stories, and I only had time to read maybe half of them. But maybe I'll do a show where I'm reading these answers. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, I'll have to do an episode where I read these answers. So some of these are pretty cool. Very neat stuff. Right, Alexander? You see it? Klaus Schwab's robe? It's fucking... Dude, really. I want to look at it now myself. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to get the Twitter post for it. I'm going to the Twitter post. I'm going to post it. Let's see. Copy image address. Let's see if that works. Yeah, that'll work. All right, guys, if you're curious and you didn't look it up, I'm going to give you a link in the chat. Check out these motherfuckers. Just check that shit out, just for a minute. Like, dude, I would fucking wear that. I would wear that all day. Like, I would go fucking supermarket in that thing. I'd be like, yo, how much is the roast beef? You picture me at the fucking supermarket wearing that going, excuse me, sir, how much is the roast beef? I bet you they help me really quick. I love the textured vest. I think that's like such a cool touch. Never mind that they're like the enemy. You can still respect, you know, their sense of fashion. That's a pretty fucking cool outfit, I gotta say. Okay. All right, guys. So, I think I'm going to cut it a little bit early tonight, but, you know, we had some fun. We had some conversation. I got to say, like, I don't like to say too much because then it kind of can screw me up, but I've felt pretty good again, like inspiration wise. I felt, you know, here's where I got to be careful. If I say too much, then I kill my drive. But in my writing, I'm going to read you one thing. This isn't reading anything from the book. Did I leave it in here? It was like sort of like, yeah. All right. This was something I wrote like as a note. So like, you give you a little bit of a window into my writing process. Sometimes I'll write things that I'm going to delete, but they're my thoughts at the time so I can get them out. And sometimes I'm writing about the book that I'm writing about, or I'm writing about the process, or something like that. This way I get it out, and then I can go back sometimes and look at it and remind myself like what I learned. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I journal while I'm writing sometimes, and I have to like tear it out so it doesn't get in the book in the end. And I don't know if I said this right, so forgive me. I'm just going to glance it over because I may, you know, I may change it, but Here's what I wrote, and this was like a journal entry to myself. Ready? Let me just give it a good burp because I had some soda. Oof, I'm burping a lot tonight. Excuse me. Okay. I labored for many months, over 2 years, trying to decide how to present to you the knowledge and perspective contained in the following pages. The difficulty was not in the realization of these things, but in the best way to communicate what to me is self-evident. These things are not simply self-evident to me, but form the basis of most successful metaphysical perspectives and has been corrupted by religions around the world over. I also recognize that the nature of my intended audience is not stuffy PhDs, and this is not meant to be a textbook. It's not meant to be peer-reviewed paper for a scientific journal. As cerebral as I can possibly be with these subjects, I realize that my true audience is down in the trenches, people who need inspiration and guidance, not academic diatribes. I should give you a hint on what I've been doing, by the way. It's been very academic-looking diatribes. They've actually sucked. I've been reading my stuff, and I go, damn, that's really deep and powerful, but it's written like shit, and it reads like a damn textbook. So then I continued, it is also in the traditions of the best metaphysical perspectives to express what cannot be said with poetry and allegory, rather than by filling book after book with the dry intricacies of the finer points of metaphysics. Though those things can come later and already exist by the truckload, we must realize that it was not the cerebral literature that liberated people. Those cerebral tomes come later, inspired by the awakening provided by the enigmatic allegories, poetry, and verses of the sages and mystical artists. It is the art that inspires liberation, not academia. It is the spirit of this realization that I now present to you. Now, I don't want to oversell it, all right? Because it is still a little stuffy. It is still absolutely cerebral and academic on a lot of levels. But this book right now has 72,000 words in it. And I'm not going to lie, I'm going to keep about 5,000 of them. That should give you an idea of how dissatisfied I have become with the wordiness and the textbook nature of what I was writing. That's 65,000 words of just meandering, saying the same things over and over again, throwing an entire dump truck load of shit at you just to explain 2 or 3 ideas. And there's a wise person said that if you really know something, you should be able to explain it to a child very easily so that they can understand. I mean, obviously you can't explain a child like programming language or something, but you should be able to explain to a child what programming is to a child in like 1 or 2 sentences. And I realized that if I can't do something like that, then I don't quite get it. I'm not quite ready to publish. And, you know, I don't know what's going to come out. Part of my problem is, you know, despite all my Zen shit, I still go through anxiety and depression and ADD and all of those things. I wake up in the morning with the intention to write a masterpiece, and after breakfast, after dealing with the bird for a little while, after putting the dishes away, after doing the first half day's of chore, it's like 12:30, 1 o'clock. And by that time, I might not be able to do it. Because then I got to check my morning paper. I got to look at the politics of the day. I got to look at, you know, social media to see how my current things are going. How's my community doing on Discord? I gotta lurk, because I do lurk there, by the way. People don't realize, like, it seems like I don't know. I read most of the stuff you guys say, not everything, but I read a lot of what you guys say. Like, I'm gonna say 80% of it, and I just don't get involved in it all. I feel like I say enough as it is all the time. I don't need to fucking talk over you guys on Discord. Like, I feel like I'm already a fucking blabbermouth when I do a stream. You know, you guys get enough of that shit there. Like, I feel like Discord is for you guys. and I just get engaged once in a while. So I check that stuff out. And so, you know, by the time I'm done with all that, it might be 2 o'clock. And my wife and I like to start dinner around 6 or 7. Usually by 5, something comes up. So I'll be sitting there, and I don't get any real writing started until like 4 o'clock. This is like Office Space, by the way. If you ever watch Office Space, it's basically what I'm saying. You know, I clock in, I fuck around. I get about 10 real minutes of work done every day. And that's what I feel like when I'm home. Ironically, when I go to my day job, I'll bring my laptop with me. And if it's not too busy and we're not like surrounded by bullshit to do, I get more writing done at work than I do at home. Believe it or not. If it's not a busy day, I'll plow through like a chapter or two. It's freaking hilarious. I am a mess. You know, my home has become stale. It's like a cave. It's almost like a cubicle. I feel like, you know, there's times like I wish I could just go to the beach and write, but that's not comfortable. But I wish I could do something like that. Yeah, Alpha, I don't actually watch the news, by the way, to be clear. I watch alternative media. I watch people that I know are not lying to me. Like they're doing their best to get the information. And I watch their analysis, knowing, because they'll tell you up front, this is just analysis. This is the media, the mainstream media tells you what to think. An analyst tells you what they think. There's a big fucking difference. And if you can't tell the difference, I don't mean you, I'm not yelling at you. If you can't tell the difference, whoever you are out there, between the media saying this is reality, believe it, and somebody who's an analysis-oriented person telling you what they think is reality, if you can't see how they frame the difference and why mainstream media is so gross, don't come at me telling me like you're really good at like, you know, mysticism and sorcery and magic and shit. Because if you can't see through glamour that thin, there's something wrong. If you can't watch, like I can't watch even the channels that might sometimes agree with me for more than a few minutes. Like people are like, oh, you must like Fox. Actually, no, I don't like Fox. I don't like MSNBC. I don't like CNN. I like a little bit of Tucker, what Tucker does, I suppose. But I don't really watch that either. If I watch him, I get mad. I already know what he's going to say. I already know what's going on. It's not hard to keep track of what's going on. You don't need the news media to know what's going on anymore. You can, if you go onto Twitter and you follow the right people, you'll get the news faster than the news can tell you. Like if you follow the right people on Twitter, you'll know if there's a shooting before the media drops the breaking. You'll know if there's a fucking, you know, if Biden has picked his nose and made a nosebleed before the media will show you. Even if it's live happening on the media. So you don't need them anymore. They're completely redundant and stupid. Oh, thank you, Atropa. She says, if I didn't like to hear you talk, I wouldn't be here. Thank you, Atropa. My friend said to me the other day that I don't know. I disagree. I feel like I'm a squawking crow. He says I have a great speaking voice. And I know that sometimes I like I've been told, like, if I really want to, I can sound extremely charming. But I don't really like to talk that. When I'm really talking, I'm animated, like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like Alex Jones. Like, if I'm really into it, I'm like that. But yeah, I mean, I can talk in a very syrupy way, but I don't usually do that. But he said, you've got such a relaxing voice. You're like the sound of a thunderstorm. I guess that means because I'm boisterous. But yeah, Jockster, you know, that's what my wife said, because there's a library right around the corner. I could just take my laptop to the library and go there. And that's not a bad idea, but that puts another layer of like process in between me and the thing. So whatever it is, ADHD, depression, anxiety, whatever my problem is, I don't, it's one of the reasons I go to the gym, even though I like to go to the gym. The gym is literally less than 1.5 miles from my house. I could walk there every day, and I don't do it, even though it's that easy. I have to already have a reason to do something for me to go out. Like, it's gotten really bad. Like, that's why I love to go out. Like, I'm an Aries dude. I like going out. I like having fun. I like exploring. The problem is getting myself up to do it and to go out is like, I'm also an introvert, so I don't do that. I need someone who's more active than me to just like put a fire under my ass and get me to go, then I'm an adventurous motherfucker. Like once I'm out of the house, once I'm in motion, I've said this to so many people, like especially when it comes to my work habits. I'm like classical physics. I'm a body at rest, I stay at rest. If I'm in motion, I stay in motion. You get me in the car and we go out, I don't want to come home. You have me sit at home and I don't want to go out. So just like making that, like I'm home and I'm going to go out and write, like that's a lot. Like that's like far and shit. It doesn't happen for me. I can't seem to get myself to break through that barrier as easily as other people. I know that sounds weird for guys like talking about willpower. It's not about, well, I can't control my willpower. The willpower does what it does, man. My will is to be home, or my will is to be a fucking lazy flake sometimes. It's just a fact. I've just learned to be that and be happy with it. So this is why, you know, my will is to find things that I have to do to get me out of the house. If I don't, then I'm not happy. So yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. But no, you're not wrong, Joshua. It's a great idea. It's just, you know what? Come to my house and drag me out. Like, come knock on the door and be like, get in the car. You got to write today. So, all right, guys. So I think I'm going to close it out here. I want to thank all of you guys for coming. You know, thank you so much for your super chats and questions and comments and, you know, all the stuff that you guys do and all the arguing and all the agreeing and all the stuff. It makes it all great. Gives me an excuse to rant for 3 hours on a Thursday. I don't always look forward to doing it because it's kind of like going out. You know, it's like, fuck, I don't want to go out, but I want to go out. And once I'm doing it, I don't want to stop. So I always appreciate you guys, even though I might have to like get a fire lit under my ass some nights to do it. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you guys come. And for those who don't remember, in September, it is still on the books. There'll be more about it coming up once it gets closer and I have more details. But September 30th, if I remember correctly, there will be a meetup in Newark, New Jersey at QXT's in Newark. It's like a goth club. And there's going to be an event that night that I'm going to be doing. And then we're going to hang out at the club afterwards for a little while. Hopefully it's not just 80s night, unless 80s night means 80s goth. That would be cool. But if it's like, don't get me wrong, I love like Duran Duran and all that 80s shit, but I hope it's not just like regular 80s shit. I hope that they mean like 80s, you know, well, you know, post-punk, goth rock, all that shit. Whatever came out in the 80s, which some of the best of it did come out, especially late 80s. That was like some of the best shit. Like late 80s, early 90s was like my jam for goth. And even around like, I would say even like up until like the early noughties, like from like, you know, like 95 to like 2005, like that was a pretty good era, but it was starting to get mainstream and it kind of started to fizzle a little bit. So, there was some stuff that started to get funky, you know, not as much. Like I would say when Gary Newman put out like Dead Heaven and you had The Wake did Christine and Switchblade Symphony, like those were all, that was like a great era for like, you know, goth music, man. September 30th, Alpha. September 30th. I'm pretty sure that's what I've been saying. Maybe it's the 29th. Hold on, let me check. It's in the Discord. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. If you're not a member of the Discord, by the way, join the Discord because that's where all the updates are for when things are happening. So there's a specific room for that in Discord that we can all coordinate. Where is it? Yeah, September 30th. Yep. Definitely September 30th. So September 30th, Newark, New Jersey. Be there or be a normie. And it will be determined. It will be announced more as we get closer. Like, again, if you want to stay up to date, join the Discord. It's East Coast Meetup channel on the Discord. So the Discord's in the links in the description. Make sure you behave. So, and we picked Newark, New Jersey because there's a club there, but it's also because, well, I got invited to be a keynote speaker. I don't know if I'm going to do the speaker though. I don't know. She didn't necessarily say be a keynote. I think I offered, but she definitely invited me to come and do like book signing and stuff. So we'll see. I at least want to be there and hang out for that. So, If I get to be the keynote, that'd be really cool. If not, no big deal, in case she's watching. It's fine if I'm not. But I definitely want to do this. It sounds like fun. Yeah. Yeah, QXT's nightclub. I guess you're in the area, Alpha. If you are, let me know. Like, that'd be cool. Like, join the Discord and get involved in that channel if you want to have anything to do with that. And we look forward to meeting everybody. I mean, we got a lot of people going to be hopefully coming. I mean, I'm going to say conservatively, we got at least 5 or 10 people going, but it may be more like 20 or so. So we'll see how many people show up. I think that'd be, if we can get like, 20 people to come and come to hang out like together, not only would I feel like a boss ass motherfucker with a big fucking crowd coming to see me, but I would love to meet all you guys. And it would be, I think you guys would have fun meeting each other because a lot of you guys get along really good on the Discord, and it'd be really fucking cool. So what are you saying, Atrope? Are you saying, I don't know if that means you've been there on the 80s nights? I don't know. Oh, you're talking about like goth music went mainstream. Yeah. If that's what you mean, I agree with you. Like some of it was really like, I mean, there's things that are like goth adjacent, like Typo Negative, right? Typo Negative was always cool. Like to me, like that, if someone were to ask me like, are you into goth or metal or what? I'm going to say I'm into both, but Typo Negative was like the perfect synergy of the vibe that I like. I guess it's my Long Island. Like I fucking feel like I could hang out with Peter Steele and like all of them, and it would be, believe it, I know I don't seem like it, but that's more my speed than like, some wafy Edward Scissorhands guy. Like I get along with them too. Like that's still cool as shit. And all the metalheads are cool as shit. But like the Typo Negative crowd is like more like my kind of crowd, like just generally. So, all right, guys. I'll be checking you guys out next week, most likely, and hopefully we can get a guest on again sometime. I think I might ask. I think you guys really enjoyed when I had Dan from the Damn Podcast on from TDP. He was really cool to have on. I'd like to get him on again. I'd like to get Eddie on again. I'd like to get a bunch of people on again. So we're gonna have to see. It's been a while since I had guests on here a lot. I've kind of like backed up a little bit and just been doing this more casually because I had to. It kind of got me burned out a little bit dealing with fucking the witch wars and all the bullshit last year. But that's how I roll, guys. I hot and cold things for a while, and then eventually I'll get completely hot again. So we'll see. I'll have to find. So once I write another book, I'm sure I'll be doing the rounds like more and getting more attention again. I got to catch up with EA. I also got to get Behemoth on again. Well, I shouldn't say again. I got to get Behemoth on in the first place. He'd be a lot of fun to get on. And there's quite a few other people I want to try to get on. So I got to actually get my ass in gear and start putting out invites and feelers again. I haven't done that in a while. I've been very much I'm just going to stream by myself on Thursday. And it's been slowing down. Honestly, like, I guess a combination of I haven't been putting out as many videos. There's a bit of shadow banning at play. And also I've just been a little bit, what's the word? Not lethargic. Just not driven to do this lately. It's just been a casual thing for a little while. So I've noticed like my numbers going down. It's not about that, but it does influence your behavior when you're having a lot of like attention and success. It makes you want to do more. So it's not like, oh, I need to be like famous to do this, but it definitely gives you a charge and a rise when you see like 100 people coming to listen to you. And I think the most we ever had was like 150 when I had EA on. Last year, the year before. It was like 150 people was like the max that I ever reached on a stream. And I was averaging like 90 for a while there, like 80 or 90. So it's kind of slowing down. I think it's because I've gotten to be like a bit of a broken record a little bit. And I've sort of, that was the other poll I did. I know I keep saying I'm going to go and I don't go. I did a poll the other day and I asked people what they're into. And the funny thing is the thing that I'm the most into is like the second least or the least interesting thing to people. Like, what was it? What did you guys, I remember I made a post about it. What was it? It was the other day. Yeah, here we go. It was, if you could choose only one of the following aspects of occultism, what's your favorite thing about it? It would be, and my favorite thing is metaphysics. I love picking apart reality and figuring out what it is. And that was the second least favorite answer. The next favorite, the least favorite was divination. Then exploring the metaphysics of reality was 10%. 12% was spellcraft and thaumaturgy. I actually thought that would be much higher. I thought people like, I've always noticed when I do a video on how to do a ritual or something, people they don't care about that. They're just like, whatever. Like, I mean, if I do a live one, people watch those, they get into that. But they really want to see is channeling and stuff. So the second most popular answer was working and interacting with spirits. And the most popular, this blew me away because I've had people critical of self-help. Like when I talk about self-help stuff, like, oh, I thought you said you were like into magic. You just do self-help. The most popular answer was self-help and development, shadow work, apotheosis, and enlightenment. That was the most popular subject. And it's like, wow, I guess I understand now. I guess I've been sort of barking up the wrong tree a little bit, and that explains some things. Like it's not just the shadow banning, which I can tell when that started, but it might also be that I've kind of like gone off what got me famous, I suppose. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't work based on that. Sometimes I do. You know, it's inspiring to know what people like, but yeah, I'll probably get more into that again as time goes on. It's just, I got to be inspired myself, to be honest. And so we'll see. We'll see. All right, guys, that's it. I really made it this time. Thank you so much for coming. Tune in next week. Thank you for your super chats. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. Check out the links in the descriptions if you want to support me by buying something. We got mirrors still left that nobody's bought. We got other stuff. I got books. I got Patreon and all kinds of cool stuff. Patreon has a class on there that is recorded. It's for, whatever you can do, $9 or above. You get access to like 160, 70 hours worth of private classes I was doing with the group. Cool shit, and I think you guys will like it. So check it out. Until next time, see ya. Oh yeah, mind the shadows.